What's going on, Star Wars fam? It's your bro host, Chris Ryans, and I'm here for the Broaxium Crew host, Daniel Miller.
Hey!
Ben Anderson.
What's going on?
Fantastic. Tommy Puig.
What's happening?
And we've got our special guest, the writer of Star Wars Last Shot and the writer of the current High Republic Adventures book from IDW, Daniel José Older. Welcome to the show, bro.
Thank you. Thank you. Great to be here. Thank you. You guys are the best. I realized just now that I was trying to put my pronouns into my name and I put hi at the end too. So
hello.
Hi, how's it going? What's up? I'll put it here. But anyway, it's great to be here, fellas. I'm really happy to be on your show.
We're happy to have you, brother. Happy to have you.
Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna have a ton of questions about the High Republic, how you got involved, a ton of questions on this book because it's dope and we love where it's going.
Thank you.
So Ben, how about you start us off with your question, brother?
Yeah. So like I had the chance to read this just a couple of days ago, and I, for the Broaxium team, have the honor. Actually, this is my first one. I just joined the Broaxium team not too long ago.
Oh, cool.
And this is the first time that I will be presenting one of our quick shot videos, and it's on your comic. So I was excited to come talk to you.
Welcome.
But yeah, so like before I jump into the comic itself, I'm just kind of curious. Like, you got the phone call that they wanted you to come back and do this story for Star Wars. How did that feel? Just to be like, all right, they like what I'm doing. They want me to come back and keep telling some more Star Wars stories, and they want me to do it in this brand new big era called High Republic.
Right. Man, first of all, the simple answer is it was the best feeling ever. The more complicated answer is that it wasn't, at that point, it wasn't even the High Republic, right? It was Project Luminous. It wasn't even that yet. It was just a thing in Michael Siglin's gigantic brain, like trying to get out. And that's what happened. I was on tour for Dr. Hill Squad. I was in San Francisco. I don't remember which of us hit up the other one, but I was like, let's grab coffee. And he was like, actually, why don't you step into my office? And I was like, in my head, I'm like, did a tweet go viral that I didn't know about? Like,
right.
Am I in trouble?
Usually that means I'm getting in trouble.
Right. So this is like the principal's office, right? Like, and I think it bears like recognition that Michael Siglin is one of the greatest minds working in Star Wars today. Like, he is a big brain dude, and like he's the dude that has the whole massive plan out, on like the bulletin board. Like, is he looking for a serial killer? All that. Like, that's Siglin. He's brilliant, and so I knew it was gonna be good. I hoped, but I didn't know what it was going to be. And so when he was like, I'm putting together this, he was basically like, that clip from Solo that they didn't actually have in the movie, I think, where it's a homeboy being like, I'm putting together a team. And like,
yeah.
And everyone's like, that was cool. And then they Rogue One us again. It was that. He was like, I'm putting together a team. I'm putting together an all-star team of my, some of my top writers from Star Wars, and we're going to do this huge initiative, and we don't know what it is yet because you guys haven't come up with it yet. So do you want in? And I was like, do I want in? In my head, I was like, I would have jumped across the table and like grab his, lapels and be like, let me in. But I did what I'm trained to do as a writer, which is be like, well, yeah, let me talk it over, with my agent. And he's like, of course, take your time, think it over. Think it over. I thought it over. After we're talking.
Immediately, yeah.
He calls his agent. He's like, just say yes to this.
Whatever, you're going to get a call. Yes, that's it. That's not what agents do. But
I know. That's
like the worst case scenario for an agent is someone calling you, your client being like, whatever happens, just say yes. Like, no. But yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing from jump because that is the dream. Like, one of the things that's still to this day so cool about the High Republic is and what's true back then is something that's always been cool about Star Wars, which is that it's always been a conversation across mediums between different creators, like taking these ideas and throwing them at the wall and throwing them at each other and bouncing them off each other. And like, up to this point, it's happened for the most part in a very like long kind of game way, right? So like, Rebels is in conversation with things that were happening in the original trilogy, just like Clone Wars, all that, right? Which is dope. Like, that's amazing too. But now, like, and we see this with The Mandalorian too, like, to have creators in conversation with each other in live time, where we're coming together to tell this huge story, but all in our own voice and with different characters in different worlds and making them all into a unified whole. That is something that is really really cool about this project and really different. And so that immediately, I love collaboration. Like I love that process. I love talking to other writers and dealing with that stuff. So I was just on board for that immediately, and then we got to build it from there. Yeah.
So
ahead,
like
Dan.
just to build on top of like working with all of those people, like you've got Charles Soule, Claudia Gray, I mean, heavy hitters that have definitely made lots of noise, including yourself, in this whole new, Disney era of Star Wars.
Right.
When you guys get this clean slate,
Yeah.
incredibly clean slate, like you said, you had no idea what you guys had to make it all up. And was there any like disagreements about stuff, or how you guys like, what was the Old Republic at all considered when you guys were doing this, or was this just like, don't worry about the rest, we
Right.
have, you knew the destination you were going to, but when you guys were creating it, like, was there any disagreements? And
you mean like in the whole process, or like in the
like when you guys are writing it all down on that storyboard, like making up characters and stuff, or when it comes to canon and how it's going to fit in the stories that we already have, was there any like disagreements or anything like that?
I mean, the creative process involves disagreements, so there were definitely disagreements, but not any like remarkable ones or ones that are like,
You weren't fist fighting Charles or anything like that?
he's a lawyer, but you know what, it would be a close call with Charles. We both work out. Cav has height and reach, but anyway, no, it never got physical. Like, it's hard to describe because like it's not fair to say there were no disagreements, because that's not true. But like the way I would phrase it is like, it was a very healthy creative process. It still remains a very healthy creative process, and a very healthy creative process, you can't have that without disagreements.
True. Yeah.
It's literally impossible. It's wrong. If there's no one disagreeing, something's wrong, because they probably don't feel comfortable disagreeing, and that's a problem, right? So we had people being like, well, maybe this and maybe that. The process itself, like I said, it wasn't the High Republic. Everyone brought different things to the table, and then from different seeds, we kind of built what turned into the High Republic. I think Cavs was like the closest to, in certain ways, like what we really built from. But it immediately transformed into something else, like as soon as we all got our hands on it. And it never was like a thing, like an issue. And I talked about this at the launch day event, on the panel, like pitching in that setting was so weirdly not terrifying. Like, it was Star Wars. And yes, like I've pitched to Star Wars before. And yes, I've been in this business I've been publishing novels for 6 years, which isn't that long actually. And like, pitching is terrifying no matter how long you've been doing it. Like, it's a stressful thing because you're standing in front of a room full of your peers and creatives and people who have power and, can sign off on stuff. Like, because Story Group was there. You know what I mean? Like, those are the people that make the decisions. And I respect them all a lot. It's not even just like, oh, they can decide whether or not we do this. They're really great storytellers that care about story. So, but it wasn't terrifying. Like, I really enjoyed it. Like, the process of pitching was fun, and like it never felt like anyone was going to try to shoot you down, but it never felt like anyone was going to try to butter you up either, and like just sugarcoat it. And that's the balance. You don't want a room full of yes people.
Yes.
You don't want a room full of egos that are just going to be like, well, if it's not my idea, it doesn't matter, or let me find a way to pull you apart. And none of those. It wasn't that. It wasn't either of those things. It was a very like warm and very honest place to be, and that's the ideal scenario.
And that's why I'm looking forward to like this High Republic so much, because of that collaborative experience.
Yeah.
It reminds me, I remember Charles Soule said like everything was pretty much mapped out, like what's going down, like from now until maybe the end, maybe. Which reminds me of one of my favorite sci-fi series was Babylon 5. Straczynski wrote that whole thing out, and it's a beautiful series. Yeah, and that's why I'm really, really looking forward to this. I'm sorry, Tommy, you're about to...
Oh, it's all good. Is there like any character in the High Republic era that you've kind of taken and making it like a reflection of yourself? Like, is there a Daniel José Older in the High Republic era?
If there was, someone else would have to write it, because I would just make myself like the most badass Jedi on earth.
That's what you should do.
I probably do the same.
Wise and powerful Daniel José Older, Jedi Master. No, I see myself in various characters. like for sure. I've talked about buckets of blood, and
Yeah.
like,
Buckets of blood.
obviously he cut the initial seed of him comes from this legend on the street in street lore in EMS, paramedic history, that he didn't even work at the same time. People just talked about buckets of blood. That's how big a deal he was. He was like Jedi lore of paramedic. And so, that's the inspiration for him. But also, like, I was a medic for 10 years, and I did very much know what it meant to be a healer and to be working in all kinds of complex bureaucracies, just trying to do your job, which I think the Jedi very much, more so the Jedi in the later years when the Republic is a mess. Like, the Republic is functioning when we meet it in the High Republic, so it's not quite like some of the experiences I had. But just being, a healer, like you're in the world of just all this complexity and trying to basically do magic in a world that doesn't want that. And so I do feel like Torben, Buck, and I have that in common. And then with the kids, like, there's different moments, I'll say that, like throughout, like where I'm like, oh, that's kind of me, and that's coming. But that's how character, in my experience, everyone's very different. But in my experience, like, you pull a little of this, you pull a little of that. Like with Zine, it's a lot of people I know who just have had different experiences coming up in a world that didn't acknowledge or respect their powers.
Zine's awesome,
bro.
Thank you. Okay, let's talk about Zine.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, who's going first? Who's going first? Ben?
Let me just go there because I literally wrote down Lula and Zine. What were your inspirations for them, especially Zine? Because I think Dan and I were talking before this. Like, we just love her character already. Like, she's exciting, but Lula too. Like, she's got some. They both got secrets.
They both have
inspired you,
right? Yeah, and that was as you can tell right from the first pages 2 and 3. Really just about that contrast, and that they're on this collision course with each other. With Zine, it's like I said, it's like just so many people, whether it's because of certain communities or cultures that they grew up in that didn't respect their power or didn't want to acknowledge how powerful they were, for so many different reasons. And then they get to, I think so many of us have had that experience on one level or another where you just realize like, oh, these people don't want me to be powerful. And like to acknowledge my power will mean that it will mean an automatic rupture from them. And sometimes that creates lies between people that love each other in every other way. It tears friendships and relationships apart. And so with the Force, I just felt like that was a really interesting starting place to have someone who's Force sensitive and who grew up around people that aren't cool with that. And then to have her witness, we've all read the issue now. So like have her witness the Jedi being the Jedi and being badass. And one of my favorite panels is that moment. And because Harvey drew the hell out of this, but that moment when she's looking at them and they're like, like fighting off all the blaster bolts and being heroic, saving people in her city, and these dudes are shooting at them, and she's just like, those dudes are like me. Like I could be like that, and not the person who's like lessening themselves for the sake of their best friend and a lie.
Right.
She's got to be pretty strong too. If she can, again, spoiling it right now. Like, if she can immediately go, that debris that's coming out, I'm just going to hold that up there. Like, that's pretty amazing, the confidence.
That reflex type thing. So, like, I think if she had tried to do it, probably wouldn't have gone as well.
Right.
It was literally like,
instinctive. Yeah.
And that's one of the things I love is like going forward with her. I don't know if she's going to, of course, but I mean, I don't know if she's going to become a Jedi. But it would be dope to have like if she's a Force user out there, not so much tied to one religion, but just doing her own thing with her abilities, kind of like the kid from the end of Last Jedi. With the
Broom Boy.
Broom Kid. Yeah.
The galaxy is full of Force like sensitive people, right?
Yeah, and the Jedi is just one religion dedicated to it, just one. So
and that's so interesting, like as a thing. Yeah.
Something really sparked me when I was reading it about how she was told never to touch the Force and stuff. Something tells me that the Jedi were there when she was a child that she doesn't remember, and they knew whoever knew that she was special, and that's why they kept her from using her power. That's where I feel like this is going. Super. Yeah, you don't have to spoil it, Dan. You don't have to spoil it.
Not only do I not have to, I literally cannot. But that's a fact.
The Disney snipers on us right now. And
better hold that embargo.
I hear something.
What are you guys talking about?
South Park.
Nothing, Mickey.
So in this comic, this is the first time, or the first time we're seeing Yoda again, I believe. So
Mm.
was that a huge honor for you to be able to grab that?
Totally. Yeah, no, I was just like, and it wasn't something I was gunning for. I don't gun for shit. Shit comes to me.
Right,
No, not true. That's not true. That's not true. There's shit I want. But I obviously wanted it, but it wasn't like, who's going to get Yoda? Like, divvy it up. All right, pull straws. Like, it was none of that. Like, we don't do that. So the cool thing about this, and this is like a side note, but like the cool thing about this initiative is there's so many cool things. Like Yoda, that's an obvious connection to like the what we already know, but there's just so many cool beats of story throughout, and they're so well portioned across the different things. And I think that's also really different about it, in that like it's not trying to be like, okay, well the adult fans get all this, or like the YAs get that. It's like the major story beats of this universe are very much divided across the thing, across the scope of like comics, books, middle grade, adult, all that, and like each one still stands on its own. Like you can still get the whole story of the we're telling in the High Republic if you just stay on one track. But like really, there's so much in there.
So many avenues, yeah.
Yeah, but no, Yoda, of course, like that was huge, and it's just so cool to have Yoda out in the world. We've seen him as an action hero, but like I feel like this is another level of him. First of all, being with the kids, like hanging out with teenagers. It's literally like Yoda is like with a bunch of teenagers, like like a year abroad, and he's the chaperone, and he's just like, well, do what we must, we will. I don't know. Like, it's chaos in the best kind of way. And then they have this like random Jedi like medic with them that no one knows that well, and they're gonna find out how that goes.
So,
Go ahead.
All right.
Wait, who's going? You? All right. One of the things is when I first saw Yoda in your book, and the one thing that comes to mind with him is he, to me, marks the fall of the Jedi. Him in that era is like a look ahead to like, yeah, everything's cool now, but something's coming. So I don't know. Did the writer, did you all look at him as like, or put him in there sort of like, yeah, of course he's going to be there because he's 900 years old, but was he also in there as like a reminder, like, all right, y'all, everything's nice now, but you see this guy, he represents what's about to happen. Like he's almost like a harbinger of doom for the Jedi.
The complicated thing about Yoda is like, as we said before, he casts a big shadow, right? So like he does represent that, but he also represents like the way out of that. For Luke, for Rey, like throughout, like he's the one that shows up to help get people through. He's the one that knows enough to get his ass out to Dagobah instead of getting clapped like everybody else. Right. So like it's like so many different things to different people. And so, like, yes, it's like you have to be aware of all those pieces and also kind of cut them loose and just like tell the story you're telling, right? It's like almost the same thing with like writing like young Ben Solo. We all know what happens, but like, like writing a scene between him and Han when he's just a toddler, like you can't lean too heavily into that because then it's really obvious and awkward. Like, oh, not you playing with a lightsaber and stabbing your father with it. It's heavy-handed, right? But
right.
And the truth is, you don't have to, because that history is right there, and everyone knows it. So you can just let it be there, But it's complicated for sure.
I like that Han was like stepping on little space Legos.
It's like these are boring cartoons on TV. Han Mothma showing up on the hollows. Yeah, it's like someone Skyping into your house, just like showing up like your wife's boss. Yeah, like, I'm trying to like put the kid down. Like, I don't have a shirt on. Yeah, it's daybreak, man. And then Lando
So you said that you've been doing novels for about 6 years. Is this your first comic book?
Yes.
Awesome.
I've written a graphic novel. It doesn't come out for another like year and a half. So that's how publishing is.
So is there any big difference between writing a novel and writing a comic book? Like,
yeah, it's huge. It's totally different. It's totally different. Yeah.
What's it like when you have all of this you've written down and then you have your illustrator come in and bring your work to life in a sense? And it's like, do you work with them on that? Do they hit the nail on the head on their own, or
we go back and forth a fair amount, but like just about like world details, like the same notes, sometimes story group will come in with some notes and I'll come in with notes, just certain things about the world, whatever it might be. But like he nails everything he does right off the bat. Like it's wild. Awesome. He's really, really good. And that's I want to say this without it sounding like to lessen the work of the writer, but it feels like cheating a little bit to write. Like I literally will sit down and be like, and then they have a fight, and Harvey's like, 15 hours later, duh, masterpiece, and I'm like,
I have to say,
that's great.
some of the most beautiful art I have witnessed so
Incredible.
far in these comics. I
It's
love
genius.
his style. Yeah.
The color especially is really popping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Color is
I gotta-
fantastic. That's Rebecca Nalty. Yeah, they're both really good. Like Harvey brings like an elegance to those characters that we just don't see a lot enough. Like and like it's still very comic book, so it fits the medium perfectly, and it also just has this like it's almost like this Baroque like vibe to it. It's so cool what he does, and it's great to see. You know, it's just knowing that he's going to do that. Writing it makes writing it so much fun because I'm just like, well, let me throw him this situation. You know, sometimes I'll do the Marvel method and just be like, take 2 pages and write this monster fight, and I know it's going to be amazing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. The Nihil looked awesome.
Oh, yeah.
woo!
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I got a question about one character though.
Mhm.
I don't know what type of alien he is or what language he's speaking, but it's just symbols. You know.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
So,
I have to put the fifth on
any
that.
insight on that, or is that going to
No
be?
insight. Court, I will say Court is one of Farzala and Lula's best friends. He's a little shy. You might be shy too if you wore a skull mask all the time.
yeah,
True.
yeah.
I-
That skull mask is very familiar too. It looks like
Yeah, it looks like Darth Crate.
I thought of Cubone from Pokemon.
all of those references are valid.
Take them all.
That's all I have to say. He doesn't speak basic.
Yeah, I kind of just inserted my own like what he's saying, like
Yeah.
like, and that part I was like, are you for real, bro? That's what he's saying.
You're right. You nailed it. And like, yeah, I love that about Star Wars, that some species or just some random characters just don't speak basic. You know, like folks deal with it. Like, they either learn the language or they ask somebody else, and it's like you will deal. You know, but to me, that's part of the like framework of Star Wars, is that there's lots of languages and not everybody speaks them, but some people speak all of them, and you're gonna deal one way or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, some people can't without a vocalizer.
So I have another question getting back to Zine, because again, she's like my favorite character now.
That's great. Yeah, thanks.
And I'm looking at her like, all right, she's got this thing that she's hiding. She's finally divulged it to the world. She's got her best friend Crix there, who instantly gets mad about it.
Yo, that poor dude.
And I'm sitting here, so I'm hoping that there's the poor dude.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like he's been lied to his whole life, and now he's pissed that that his friend is.
He's like,
You
you
know,
have been lying to me about the most.
Yeah, you've been hiding things from me.
I'd be so hyped.
I know, I'd be like, you could do this.
You would if you didn't grow up with those dudes.
And I guess
That's the Romac is not trying to hear about no force users in his crew. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
about that life. They're like, it is not cool to use the force. The force is not to be used.
yeah,
And come to find out, like your best friend has been a sinner, basically.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
You mad?
So this is going to be really hard for him. So I guess the question is that like we kind of see Crix being dragged away a little bit, but like, are we going to be able to see the next steps for them? Like, is this relationship between Zine and Crix, is it over, and Crix is going to be betrayed forever? Like, I know you can't spoil, but I'm kind of curious.
Not next week. Next week.
I knew that was coming. I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
I kind of see
Green
where
Republic
maybe
Times, Green Republic Channel.
I could see her like becoming a Jedi and him becoming a Nihil.
That's what I was thinking. Maybe a Nile or something.
Ooh,
that'd be fun.
Like that. Like that.
Yeah.
Niggas sitting back like, I know everything that's happening. Y'all go ahead.
You can speculate.
I can only speculate.
Speculate on.
Speculate.
There are 2 moments in the comic book that made me think of one word. I got it wrong when I was talking to the boys here before you got on, but Tommy brought the right word to my mind. The way that half of their faces are being brought together, I keep thinking dyad.
Oh.
Like these two have such a it's almost like you were writing them almost as like these 2 halves of one person kind of thing, you know.
Ooh,
and
that's super
it just I can't wait to read next week because I want to find out.
I will say, obviously I can't speak to all that, but I will say I love the moment just on like a sheer, like, I feel like I can't even think of a specific moment I've been there, but I feel like all of us have been there when we are in crisis and we do something that totally blows us away because we didn't even know we had it in us to do it. And then we're so shook by that, we're about to blow it. And then someone shows up and is like, it's cool. I got you. And like, for me, like that moment when that Lula has with Zine for that, like everything else aside, that's just so powerful to me because that is friendship, not even friendship. Like, yes, it's friendship, but it's also like, sometimes that's a stranger.
Yeah.
Who, is my internet okay? Yeah. Okay.
You're good.
Yeah, sometimes it's a stranger where you're just like, you're in a really, really messed up place and someone just shows up and says like the one thing that you needed to hear and things don't automatically become okay, but they come that much better that you can make it to the next moment. And for me, like their hands next to each other and Lula just being like, Lula doesn't even realize how big a deal it is that she's not judging her for having the Force. You know what I mean? Because everyone she has ever known in Zine's life has been like, you are bad, even though we don't know that you're bad, right? Like she's been I'm still broken up. Y'all froze. No? Oh, okay.
No,
everything
cool.
But yeah, she's been feeling guilty about her powers for her whole life. And then, you know, someone comes along and is like, wow, you just saved all of us, first of all. Second of all, I'm gonna help you because I can do this too. Like that's just so powerful as a momentary moment. I also really love, and I love how Harvey did it, but this moment, that page of just the backstory of Zine and Crix, kind of like moving from place to place, and then like just seeing like young Zine and young Crix and young Cham Cham and all that.
So, all right, thank you for going there. Where can I get my own plush Cham Cham?
Yes.
I would like to know that too, but
at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge in like
hopefully at Galaxy's Edge when that
when it opens back up,
look, that'd be something. We all need a Cham Cham in our life.
Where's I've got my little plush baby Yoda somewhere, or Grogu as we now know. So he'll go right alongside him and be best friends.
Agreed.
So any chances of us seeing Marky on Row? Here you can't say anything yet. Take that as a no.
What?
Take this as a no.
What are you asking, Tommy?
I mean, he's on the cover of like issue 3.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's right. Yeah,
that's right.
There is a chance, unless we're just really liars. No, what I will say is that, like, without revealing too much, like this story goes deep into the heart of the Nile, into the leadership of the Nile. Like it's connected, and that's what's so cool about it. Again, like. Those aren't beats that Star Wars has always been generous about giving to all ages material, even though Star Wars is all ages and always has been. But you know, like there's emphasis put on the like old people stuff,
right?
Understandably, because that's like the main audience is like, you know, us old people, and that's cool. But it's what's really cool is like these are like major plot beats happening right now in the scope of the larger story. So like you could read, you know, this whole sequence over the next 12 months and beyond. And just like have a cool story. But like if you're reading Light of the Jedi, if you're reading et cetera, Lula's a main character in Race to Crash Point Tower, which is the middle grade that I have coming out in the summertime, that touches in a very cool and complicated, deep way, more so than we've even seen so far with Cav's book, The Rising Storm. Those two books are intimately entwined in a way that, like, again, we haven't seen that happen yet. And that's the heart of this whole project, is like these weird moments of like the way that they map out against each other. I mean, that's like on some other plane. It's really cool.
That's been the beauty of this whole project with all of this new canon going forward, is how well you guys have been weaving every media together. I mean, from a show to a comic book to a novel. It's so awesome.
Thank you. It's awesome for us too, because we're just like, oh wait, we could do this over there and the thing with the guy, and like,
that's great.
I know this is way of like ahead in the future, but we know that like with all the show announcements that we had at you know, where they announced all the TV shows that are coming out, Acolyte being one of them. I think that's confirmed to be a High Republic era setting. Now I'm assuming the authors are gonna, the team, yourself included, you're gonna be a part of the writing of that story, correct? Or can you not say anything?
Consulting
or consulting even?
No comment.
No comment.
I will say that I was no, I literally can't comment on it. Some of the answers I don't know, but I will say that I am excited about it.
Right on.
That's good.
Good enough for me.
This is genuine. There's no moment where like Star Wars people are at odds about other things that are coming out from Star Wars. That's not a thing. I promise you. I mean, I'm not inside other Star Wars creators' brains, but in my experience of being in Star Wars, I've certainly never felt myself, and I've never gotten from anyone else that like anyone's ever like, oh God, I can't believe that's coming out, or like they're doing that. Why didn't we know about this? That's not a thing.
I'm glad you're saying that because that's a common perspective among
I don't know
a certain group of people.
very
Not
weird.
us, but yeah.
Not us.
On a basic level, like people, I consider as a fan, like when I see good Star Wars stuff, I want to read more and watch more good Star Wars stuff. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Like I just very genuinely feel that, and like it's just exciting. Like we're all just cheering each other on. That's all it is.
Yeah. I want to go to something that you said during the live stream event that really impacted me, and I was hoping as I read through the comics I'll be able to learn a little bit more of the answer to this. But I'm curious what you would say. You say something about how there's just with Lula, for example, there's things that you can learn from a textbook, but then there's things you just need to experience in life that only life can teach you.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious to know, as you were writing these, what are the kind of those life lessons that you're hoping Lula learns, and that the audience that you're talking to learn as a result too?
I mean, right there in the first book, in the first beat of the first book, is really like that is exemplifies that idea. Is that like they're out in the world to learn all this stuff, and like you can go study things and learn in textbooks, but like at the end of the day, here's an even better example. As I'm talking, let me think it through out loud. But being a medic, right? Like you go to medic school for a year, you're already an EMT, which is a lower level of medical service, basically. So as an EMT, then you go to medic school for a year, you do rotations on the ambulance, you do rotations in the ER and OBGYN, you go across the board. And in those rotations, you are like doing the physical things that a paramedic does, starting IVs, intubating people, so your skills are there. But what you're not doing is ever really making the decisions. And what you learn, like the way to be a medic, you have to be out in the streets, not just doing the skills, because anyone can start an IV, but to make the decision of what to put in that IV based on what your assessment of the patient is, no one can actually teach you that. That's not. You have to get your hands dirty, and you have to make those decisions yourself, and you have to look at a patient knowing that you have to make a decision about them. You look differently when you're a medic who makes the decisions versus when you're a student who's like just waiting to be told what to do. And there's nothing that you can't trade that for anything except the experience of being like, I'm the decision maker and I have to make a decision with my partner about what to do, right? And that's true of being a Jedi. I think there's a lot of crossover in being a Jedi and being a medic. And for Lula and them, like this is a moment to be out in the galaxy and explore and whatever, but also like in a very real way, the Force throws them into a situation where now people are gonna die based on their actions and inactions, which is why Yoda's like, that's exactly why we have to go in there, right? Like they're like, there's no backup, and that's why we need to go do this because there's no backup. So there's no one else to do this, so we got to do it, and that's what they do. And that's and then for Lula, it's very much about overcoming that sense of anxiety of like she's a textbook Jedi, she's a textbook Padawan. She aced her classes, she's on top of her game in every way, and nothing compares to actually being in the face of danger and seeing like what you're gonna do now.
I thought it was interesting seeing these two characters. One that's actually a Jedi, and she's having issues with confidence, and then we have one that's not a Jedi, and she seems very confident. She knows she's powerful, and I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I think their two stories are just so fascinating to kind of play off each other, and that was the moment that this issue like came to life. Like I knew the part of the story I wanted to tell. I knew that they were showing up, and I knew that Zena and Crix were getting involved, but I didn't know how to approach it, like in terms of just like what the angle was really, and it was really realizing that this is about those two stories kind of smashing into each other, that the whole thing just came to life. And then I was like, okay, we really are telling parallel stories, and that's what made it work.
Yeah. And I'm curious to know, like, as you were writing this, like, it's very easy to go, Yoda, everybody knows Yoda. Let's just rest on Yoda. And I think something he did really well was you got him in there. It felt familiar because we all know who he is. Right. And then you moved along to the two new characters that we need to learn about. And that's really what it was for. So I'm sure we're going to see a little bit more Yoda, but was there...
There's definitely more Yoda ahead.
Yeah, we're not done yet. But like, did you have to avoid the temptation of giving us more Yoda right out of the way, or was that not as much a concern?
Not too much. I appreciate you saying that, because that was what I was thinking. Basically, was like, I know people are going to want to see Yoda, and so I did want to kind of have that done with. And so people were reading like, yeah, but is Yoda here? It's like, no, Yoda's there. So you're seeing it right off the bat means he can literally pop up at any point. Now he's around. Cool. But also I'm like, and I take this from being a writer of young adult and middle grade books. Is like, this is the story of the young people at the end of the day, and like that's what I think good young people's literature does, is focus and center the young people and the decisions they make and the actions they take based on those decisions. Like, that's interesting to read as young people. And I think even as adults, like, kids have that chaotic element that adults don't always have as well. And so they're interesting to write for that reason. So I was like, for me, it's like, that's a good story no matter what, because it's chaos, but in a controlled way that if we sort of organize it in a way where it's interesting, we can make those things happen. And so that's really where my interest in the story was. And Yoda is just always awesome and cool to have around. So it's like, great, I get the best of both worlds. Like, Yoda's in there. He's gonna pop in and out throughout. You're never gonna know when you're gonna see him next, but he's around quite a bit. And then, it's really about the kids.
Yeah.
Is there any like? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, bro.
Is there any like character like from any era of Star Wars that you would love nothing more than on their story? Any era. Any era.
I get asked all the time, and I feel like I should have a good ready answer ready to go. And I don't, because it's always changing. I don't know. Man, I don't know. I'm so happy writing what I'm writing right now.
That's good.
I will say that I have an affinity for the underground stories, and that's, I guess, the one thing I'm not working on right now. I mean, there is an underground in the High Republic, so don't sleep on that for sure. As yes, I think we already know some of that. Anyway, there's always underground stuff happening throughout Star Wars. He said vaguely. But yeah, that's why my from a certain point of view story kind of touches on the bounty hunters and the Parappa cartel and them. Yeah. And they're in Last Shot for sure. But I do really love the underground world. I mean, The Godfather is like my favorite movie. I love that. Look, I stopped myself from swearing. Casablanca is another of my favorite. I just think there's so many interesting ways of telling stories and stories to tell. I love the bounty hunters Marvel comics going on right now. The Dr. Opera stuff is always one of my favorite characters. Yeah, for sure. And they're all just doing incredible work in Marvel right now. So it's something over there. We'll see.
So a lot of the creatives that have been coming into Lucasfilm lately seem to have some story about how Star Wars inspired them as they were, thinking about their future careers and getting more creative and things like that. Was that similar for you? Was there anything that you might, if I, one day I hope to get my hand on Star Wars, like, because this specifically inspired me, and I would go this direction if I could. Like, was that kind of how you grew up too?
Oh yeah, definitely. Star Wars, like, really my number one fandom, and always has been. Like, there's obviously other stuff I love deeply in different ways, but Star Wars has always been it, like, beyond anything else. Return of the Jedi was my first movie that I saw in a movie theater. I was 3, and that has always been my jam. That's what's behind my love of the underground too. Is the Jabba's palace scene is really that to me. That's the epicenter of Star Wars. Like, which is why I loved like the last beats of The Mandalorian second season, in part because they evoked that with like everything that was so amazing about Luke. So I was like on my feet that whole time. Yeah. But then to cap it off with that moment in Jabba's palace, that's like that was beyond the icing on the cake, because that's my favorite scene. Like, so to have the two elements of that scene that are so dope, which is like this incredible monk warrior facing off with this gang lord and like all of the creatures around. I was in Star Wars heaven, and like I still am because of that. And like, so yeah, Return of the Jedi has always been it for me. Like that, and specifically the Jabba stuff. And so like, I don't know if I would say it was like a lifelong goal, only because to write for Star Wars, only because I didn't think of it as something that was possible, right? Like, I don't know, it just didn't cross my mind as like I could do that, because I was still trying to figure out whether or not I could even write books, And then I was like, I can do this, and then it was Delilah Dawson. I was at a writers conference with her in Vancouver, like 4 years ago, and she had that novella out at that time, which was her first Star Wars thing. This was before Phasma. She had just gotten the Phasma deal, and she told me like as a secret, and I was like, "Oh, you could write for Star Wars." Like people I know in the existence, someone who was sitting right next to me writes Star Wars books. I was like, "That's a good idea. That seems cool." It like seemed like a thing that I don't know. I just didn't know anyone who did it, right? Like, so then, that was. So yeah, it's always been that. I just didn't. And to me, I've also always been a world builder. That's a big love of mine, is world building, and I think that comes from Star Wars and just like the detail work and the love of culture and politics. Star Wars is. I don't even say this as like a counterpoint to anything. Like Star Wars, one of the things I just genuinely love about Star Wars is how political it is. You know, like they talk about like trade tariffs and they make it exciting. Like, how?
I loved all that stuff.
Yeah, me too.
I think that's some of the most underappreciated stuff in Star Wars, personally.
Yes, and it's built into the fabric of it. Like it's not just like an off episode. Like it's literally, and war is politics, right? So like, and I've just always been a politics nerd from jump. Besides Star Wars, it was Greek mythology and it was politics. Those were my fandom. And literally Watergate. Mind you, I was born in '80, so this is way outside of my realm. But I was obsessed with Watergate as like an 11-year-old, and that explains a lot if you think about it, about how weird I am now. So this is like, if you think about it, like if you put Greek myths and politics together, you basically have Star Wars, right? Like, there's creatures, there's gods, there's people with amazing abilities, and there's war. That's mythology and that's politics. And so, it makes perfect sense. It's all the ingredients are there.
Definitely. So you mentioned Return of the Jedi and being the first movie you saw in theaters. Is that your favorite Star Wars movie?
It is for that reason, like for partially out of nostalgia. Yeah. I don't think, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
That's actually
always been number one for me.
That's
like
still my favorite movie as well. That's
really?
Actually the first movie I saw. Yeah, the first Star Wars movie I saw.
I always hate to say which one is my. I always hate to say which one is my favorite. I'm like, I love them all. Like, I love them all. Yes, but I was 8 years old when Return of the Jedi came out. So that one, like, I remember vividly seeing that one in the theater more than, and I know I saw Empire Strikes back in the theater.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure my dad had a bootleg of the first one. Probably. So we just watched it on like a film reel, like on the wall or whatnot. But that one, I think if it's not it's the one I watched the most. It's the one I'm more cognizant, like as a kid. So Return of the Jedi is part of my top.
There's something about it. Like I think there's other ones that I find to be more technically superior in different ways. Sure, but Jedi is like where my heart is for real.
What's your favorite? That's your favorite original trilogy movie. What's your favorite prequel movie?
Revenge of the Sith. Mostly because that whole sequence of just basically like the Order 66 stuff. Like, think of it as like a historical archive, basically, like just the opportunity to see these moments happen that you heard about in legend, and then getting to see them. It's like, I think that's what really stands out about it.
Yeah. What's your favorite sequel trilogy movie?
For me, it's almost a tie. Honestly, I think that The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi form an almost perfect duology. If you put them together.
Yeah, definitely.
Like I could really just imagine those two being the sequel trilogy, and it almost works if you think about the moment on Crate when Leia calls for help. Like, what if it just jump cut to like Lando showing up in the Falcon with everybody? Then you have the Battle of Crate with like, and it was. I mean,
you're gonna kill Chris right now.
I could just see that, and no shade to whatever. I'm just saying, like, those two movies work as brother and sister really, really well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think, and I've thought a lot about this. Like, I think Last Jedi is the technically superior movie in terms of like the cinematography is prettier. I think the script is stronger. I think it's more poetic on a number of levels, and I think it just does amazing things with the world. But I think pound for pound, I enjoy The Force Awakens more. And again with the nostalgia, not nostalgia, but I had a visceral response to watching The Force Awakens, wherein it was the first time that I really felt that original trilogy joy since the original trilogy. Like the prequels are their own thing, but they didn't give that same like sense that the original trilogy has. They're a different vibe, is what I'm trying to say. And I had that vibe of the original trilogy in certain ways, but it still felt very fresh and new. Like there was something else, there was something new, but it felt like in this world that I had been in my head in for so long and not gotten to see in the same way. And like that, just those early moments on Jakku and flying through the down Star Destroyers, like all those moments, and then the creatures, like all that stuff, those are just all my happy points for Star Wars. And realizing that like we have Star Wars back finally, was so joyous for me. Like I remember it so clearly. So on that level too, I'm just like, I think that edges the Force Awakens up a little bit. It's a tough
this new era of Star Wars.
Right. What about y'all?
I love The Last Jedi. It is a fantastic movie. Prequels. Phantom Menace. Phantom. I've been fighting these fools like crazy, so that's all I can think of. I battle against them all the time. But no, the Phantom Menace was great. I love Jar Jar Binks, one of my favorite characters. That dude makes me laugh so much. That's why I like him so much. And me and Chris actually bumped into Ahmad Best on the floor, and what a great guy. Such a nice dude.
At Chicago. Yeah.
Oh man, Chicago was so much fun.
Oh, you were there?
Yes, that was where they first announced that Project Luminous exists.
That's right. Yes.
But we couldn't say what it was. So we were just like, hey, we're doing a project. Everyone's like, what is it? We're like, we're doing a project.
That's great.
The speculating was ridiculous up until it was like announced. Like it was the speculating was
I recall.
Insane.
Oh my God. That's what we're
I think for me, was like my favorite of the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
Last Jedi.
Really? I feel you.
That is a brilliant movie. Thematically, seeing what is one of the moments where I just stood up and cheered, like literally, when Snoke got killed.
Yeah.
Everyone put so much stock into Snoke, and I'm like, you don't see him on the posters. Like he's not a big deal.
That whole throne room fight is
so awesome. When she throws that one Praetorian Guard into the chipper, I was like, that was great. Like red armor everywhere.
And the battle grade is amazing too.
Luke
versus Kylo is one of my favorite all time. No question.
It's actually the birth of one of the greatest memes ever. It's salt.
Oh yeah.
Like I think one of the images that sticks out whenever I even think of Last Jedi, of course, the color red just comes out of everywhere. But when Rey and Ben, Kylo, face each other, then turn and are back to back, like there's a red saber and a blue saber, and they're not going against each other, but they're working together. I was like,
yeah,
this is happening.
It was so good. Yeah.
That moment when Rey catches the lightsaber, like it's zooming towards her, and you see your hand just come in and grab it, like, and then the Force theme just starts right there. Like my heart just fell right to the floor. I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
And Chewie proved why he is the best.
The movies are neck and neck.
Yeah. And Chewie proved without a shadow of a doubt that he's the best pilot in the galaxy. I'm sorry, Poe, but when he's flying through the caverns, I'm like, Chewie, he doesn't need a co-pilot. His arms are long enough. So I mean, he's good. He got it.
Yeah,
the guy. It's my guy.
Yeah, I have to. I'm with you though. I agree. Force Awakens and Last Jedi were kind of neck and neck, but there are just a few things that I'm like, all right, I got to put Last Jedi up because of that throne room scene, because of the light speed scene too. When Holdo does that maneuver right into the supremacy, like that.
God, the silence,
beautiful.
Yo,
did you hear that they had to put like a disclaimer in the movie theaters about that?
No. Some people were complaining, like, "Oh, where's the sound?" And there was some people were walking out because of that.
Wait for it.
It was stupid. Impatient.
Yeah. Tell me, you're the last one that's got to answer. What's yours?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna preface this by saying that I love all the Star Wars movies. I love some more than others. That's just how it is. So, my favorite sequel trilogy movie was The Rise of Skywalker, and the reason why is because I'm a big Sith guy. I love the Sith, and they expanded on the lore of the Sith big time for this movie. Yeah. This is the first time we see a Sith planet, and then we see like an actual Sith temple, and I was just geeking over all of it. And then reading the visual dictionary, I geeked out even more because Revan became canon. along with other ancient Sith lords. So I was just, you guys, I mean, you guys remember, I was like loving every bit of it. I was just eating it all up. And then my favorite scene, I think, out of all the sequel trilogy movies was when Palpatine does the Force lightning up in the air, and I was just like, whoa. That, I mean, it shows
when he dropped the bass.
When he dropped the bass, man, I was like, it shows how the Sith are, even just one is a legitimate threat to the entire galaxy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I was just like, whoa, like, and it just blew my mind.
So let me try to dodge some snipers here when I ask this question, and just look out for red dots. Is there any hint of any dark side?
I'm pretty sure that'd be Acolyte.
I didn't hear the question.
Oh, sorry. Is there a hint of any?
No, I didn't hear the question.
Oh, you did. Okay. Now
Just wait until next week, or maybe 3 weeks from now.
next week.
That's the toughest part about interviews. It's like we want you to tell us everything.
The thing is, everybody knows that like there's so much crap that I can't say, so no one actually expects me to answer any question like that.
Yeah.
But I respect the effort.
All right, I got maybe one more, and we can see this might help take us home a little bit, but I'm curious. All right, you're going to be here hopefully for a long time. We'll get a few more stories for you further down the road. Everyone that's creative kind of comes in and has left their mark on Star Wars. What is the mark that you hope that you can leave on Star Wars when 10, 20 years, whenever you're just like, all right, I've done a lot for Star Wars. What's the mark that you're hoping to leave?
That's an interesting question. I don't think I've ever.
Sorry, I get deep sometimes.
Don't apologize for asking good questions in an interview. That's your job. Wow. I hope that my work makes people happy. Obviously, I really want to tell good stories. That's first and foremost what I sit down to do. I would like to be remembered. Like to me, it's also like there's a what's the word? I'm a writer. There's a conversation, I guess, between characters and creatures. The balance of creature and character and human is something that I just always like. Again, like back to that Return of the Jedi scene, that I just love so much about Star Wars. And that image of that iconic image of George Lucas where he's like standing in the middle of all of the maquettes and spaceships and everything. Like, I don't really see that. That's not me in Star Wars. Like, I hope my legacy as a writer, as a whole, puts me in the center of all these weird creatures and people and other things that I, helped create. But with Star Wars specifically, like, I hope like people, I make characters that people love like dearly and feel like they see some of themselves in different ways. And that we, people are like, wow, he really told different stories and like really explored deeply into like the lore and like the truths that were inherent to Star Wars and expanded, what we thought about it just by, telling these stories, and that they were still fun and, amazing adventures and everything else. And then finally, like after all that, I would say that I also hope that I make Star Wars a place that people feel comfortable seeing themselves in, who hadn't necessarily before.
Right on.
And that brings me to, again, me fan gushing over when I first saw the name up, Ran Jamaram, right?
Yeah, Ran
Jamaram.
Yeah.
That is like my new favorite character in Star Wars. Like the one thing I love about the High Republic is, and I'm complaining a little bit, a lot. But
wait. Complain. It's okay. Like we can critique stuff. Y'all heard me.
No. Like, it's only that like I've told the story to like Dan before, how when I was a kid playing with my Star Wars figures, I had multiple Lando Calrissian figures and had to make them different characters just so that there were more black people in my in my stories. And I love that now. Like before, like we had tertiary characters. Lando's secondary character. Mace Windu's like a tertiary character.
Mm-hmm.
And then going forward, when Lucasfilm was acquired through Disney, then you start to see some more. You see some more diversity in there. You see more, black people, brown people, Asian people. And it's dope. with the High Republic, you can't throw a rock without hitting a person of color, and it's so dope. It is so
That's
dope.
what we said in the meeting. We were like, it's got to be, you can't throw a rock without hitting a person of color. That is a joke. We didn't actually say that. Hello. You know, that's your quote on some blog somewhere.
Yeah, you know, like when the black character would pop up, I'm like, well, that's got to be my new favorite one. He's black, like Finn. I was like, oh, I got to back him.
Not
Like,
a choice, right? You got to choose the one that will forgive you.
you know, all we got. You know, Saul Guerrero. I love Saul Guerrero. Look, I love him. He's all we got. But now, like, I can choose like Belle and Lula and Keith. God, so many. It's so dope.
Yeah,
I love it.
It makes the galaxy so authentic.
And Ram has got the best location for his lightsaber.
Oh,
yeah, right?
Yeah, right.
Right there.
I'm ready.
Yes.
That was all the artists.
Over the heart.
I can't take any credit for that. The artists are genius. That showed up in the art. And I was like, is that a chest? What? And what's interesting is like you grew up in I don't know how much I can say. Shit. Anyway, yeah, chest holster. That's cool. See? But anyway, thank you for that. Thank you for that. That's important. You know what I mean? Like it's really important. You know, when your tweet meant a lot to me, and every time I get tweets like that regularly because it matters. You know, not just because it's true. Like it viscerally matters to people. Even with like my non-Star Wars work, you know, one of the best thing that I ever hear, and to me, like hearing it as much as I do means I'm on the right track with my writing. Is people being like, you know, I found home in your book. Yeah, your book is about magic crap that doesn't exist. You know, there was still like, but I still recognize myself, and it was the first time I ever recognized myself in a book. I'm like, woo, you know, like, and there's so much to that because also like it really brings home the responsibility of the writer, and like. No matter how you look at it, like if you believe stories matter, and we all know they do because we're sitting in this room having this conversation about a story that has affected all of our lives, stories matter. Like that's not an arguable point. It's a fact. Yeah. Then you have to story responsibly, period. Yeah. Like no end to that. There's no nothing ideology. It's simply like you have to story responsibly. It is your job as a writer. And also it is your job as a writer to reflect the world with some honesty, even when the world you're writing about is in a galaxy far, far away. Star Wars has always reflected our world. Always. It's done it like better and worse jobs of it throughout its history. But there's always been a truth in like seeing some parts of our world in Star Wars. Yeah. And that's a challenge. I want to say that like that's not even just a critique. It's really hard to figure out like what are the things that we put in there from like this world that are gonna pull people right out. Because I don't like that. I don't like seeing Star Wars and being like, oh, that's whatever, XYZ. You know, sometimes that can really take you out of the universe. On the other hand, like some of the best moments are those beats where you're like, that was so real. Like that was such a real thing that just happened. Like I know that feeling. I know that, you know, that interaction. I understand it. Like that's that connection we make, right? Yeah. You're trying to do both at the same time and not push too far in either direction. But what I know is that the world is much more brown, black, and multicultural than the one we saw on the screen in the original trilogy.
So true.
The world, you know, that's not an opinion. That's just what it is. And so that's why in all my books, that's just what the truth is.
That's exactly what I feel like you guys are doing with the High Republic. I feel like you guys are righting some wrongs and you are making this galaxy full of all of these different species and people. You're making it authentic. You're making it feel real for everyone that reads it. And it's special. It's special for so many people.
I would just add that, like, what's cool is, you know, to your point, both what you all have been saying is like Star Wars has been on that track for a while, which is really cool, right? Like we've seen that. The Mandalorian is one of the most diverse shows.
Ooh,
is it? Yeah, right.
And so like that's what's so cool. Like I feel like we're all doing this, you know, together because we are. Just to tell a story that's like true, you know, just to show the representation of the world that feels true across gender and race, you know, and that's just a very simple, straightforward mandate as a writer of what, you know, it seems obvious to me that's what you would do. What else would you do?
Yeah, right. I can't stand hearing the word agenda every time somebody starts getting into. I'm like, you know what? Stop.
You just take a shot every time you hear it. You'll be drunk and irritated.
Yeah, that's why I'm bad on Twitter.
I've been on Star Wars TikTok for the past month, and it's a very happy place. I know that there's trolls over there too, but like I found Star Wars TikTok discourse to be quite like pure.
Don't get me started on TikTok. I think I've got eye strain from just being on TikTok too much. My one eyelid just starts fluttering now, and I'm like, I gotta get some sleep.
That's what happens. That's what happens.
Yeah, no, I know. It's dangerous. Man, I can't wait for you guys to read the middle grade because there's stuff I want to talk about.
We can't wait.
We'll have to have you come back on
for that.
Yeah, exactly. That's all that's gonna have to happen.
No doubt. Yeah.
We're excited for whatever else come next.
There's a whole lot ahead. There's just so much good stuff ahead, and like we're all I know I speak for all of us when I say we're just excited by the response that we've had so far. Which no one takes that for granted. No one was like, oh yeah, this is a no question. Like we're just gonna blow it out the water. Like we knew we were telling good stories, but that people tell good stories every day, son, and they die. Telling good stories isn't just a recipe for success. So we didn't know what the response would be, and it's just been so inspiring to just see people so excited, and like the memes and the fan art and like the conversations that we've just been having. Like it's just so incredible as a creator. It's so I don't know what the word is. It's inspiring.
Awesome.
I got two. I got two last questions. Because there was an interview that was done with Kevin Scott on Starlight Digest, which is they're buddies of mine.
Oh yeah, I like them. I was on there.
Yeah, we're on the same network. I do another podcast on the same network, not with them, but we're on the same network anyway. And they did an interview with Kevin, and he's a big Legends fan. Is there any? Are you a big Legend or any Legends that you do like?
I do like more. I'm more the comics more so than the novels.
Comics, yeah.
The Knights of the Old Republic comic is really fantastic.
Yes,
I'm loving it. I'm not as versed in it as Cav for sure. I'm definitely like my Star Wars is like original trilogy.
Right on. Yeah.
Original trilogy and now like Mandalorian and Clone Wars.
Yeah, they're kind of leading into the whole Legends elements as well. I know that there was an interview that not an interview, but I think it was at the last Star Wars convention, and Favreau was saying that he wanted to bring in more Legends into the continuity. Right. And I thought that was amazing. Like, and I see that. Yeah,
it's a great it's a data bank, of like things to be like, we can pull this and we can pull that. Like it's really fun to do that. There's a reference to something in my Fact Pouch story from a certain point of view, the most recent one. There's a reference to something that is only mentioned in the Ewoks animated show.
Now I got to listen to that book again. Okay.
I know Matt Martin is story group is like a big
love that guy.
Like he's so great. He's such a nerd of like that old school stuff, and I know he loves it. And like I was like, who's gonna enjoy this? Matt. So I like let me do a deep dive. I needed like to reference something. I was like, let me just jump on this here Wikipedia and find some random the Ewok animated this. Yeah. It's like the diamond something. One of the like things that they pay with it. It's really random. But I think that's such a great thing about Star Wars that it's self-referential in the best way of like, we can pull this, we could pull that, and we could. And look, there's a really clear divide about what's canon and what's not, but that doesn't mean that the things that aren't can't become canon.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
There's some truth in Legends.
Inspired.
I like that they're doing
that. Tommy, you got any more questions?
No, I think that's it.
Well, Daniel, I mean, great name, by the way, just so you know. Thank you for coming on and joining us. This was so much fun. I always love talking Star Wars with the content creators. And I also got to say one thing. Kevin likes to bring that rabbit back. That's why he loves Legends. He just wants to bring that green rabbit back. You hear us, Kevin. You hear us.
He knows what he likes.
But is there anything besides Star Wars before we go that you'd like to plug for everyone listening?
As a matter of thank you for asking. There is.
Yeah.
Just came out the day before yesterday. It's a middle grade space. Actually, it's set on Earth, but it's a sci-fi adventure. It is very Star Wars influenced, like not just because they apparently got young John Boyega to be on the cover. That was their. I don't know where they got that kid, but he's perfect. But anyway, it's a middle grade book. It's like geared towards ages 8 through 12, but really it's a fun enough story that I'm confident a full grown adult will have a good time too. And it's super weird. There's creatures. It's basically about kids in the last city on Earth after floods have taken over, trying to fight for their survival after the douchebags that caused the floods try to come back and take back over. And they're like, oh, no. And so that's and then an unlikely friendship between one of the like young guys who was part of that world, and then they all have to fight together to like save their city. It's a lot of fun. Really proud of that. I wrote it 10 years ago.
Oh, nice.
Oh wow.
Yeah, publishing is insane. It's really
So, let me ask you about that. All right, so you wrote it 10 years ago. Have you been peppering it like ever since, like, new life experience, things like that, and then like you add it to the book, or boom, it's like one and done?
Wrote it. I like edited it for sure. Like I went through the editing process, but it's just really how we were publishing it. I wrote my first book. I wrote Shadow Shaper in 2009. And that was the first like major book that I got published. I had a short story collection come out in the meantime, but that took like 5 years to get even accepted. And then I was editing it for another. It didn't come out till 2015. So anyway, I wrote Flood City after I finished that, and I was just getting rejected. That book Shadow Shaper got rejected 40 times.
Wow.
Trying to get an agent and all that. So in the meantime, I was like, well, I guess I better write another damn book. So I wrote an adult book. I wrote that. That was Half Resurrection Blues, which came out before Shadow Shaper. And I wrote Flood City, which I didn't have an agent, so I couldn't sell it. And then I sold Shadow Shaper, and then I had an agent, but Shadow Shaper and Half Resurrection Blues both sold as trilogies. Or Shadow Shaper didn't sell as a trilogy, but it became one later. So either way, I was just writing those books. And then I was like, let's try to get this Flood City thing going, and no one will buy it still, even after I had a career. And like I was like, this is wild. And then eventually, for some reason, I don't remember how it worked, but Scholastic came around, and they're like, yeah, we do want to buy that book. I was like, great, it's cool. And then immediately after that, I sent a proposal for Dactyl Hill Squad, which is about the Civil War being fought by kids on dinosaurs. And so exactly. And so everyone got really excited about that. And then they were like, you know what? You know that Flood City book you have? Let's push that. And let's do this first. So then that was a trilogy. This is the third book, which came out last year.
Dr. Hill Squad. Yeah.
Where they end up down in New Orleans and in Mexico. It's very historically based. It's absurdly history because I just became a huge Civil War nerd in the course. So anyway, all that pushed and pushed and pushed, and now finally we have arrived at Flood City Day.
Hell yeah!
Starting at midnight tonight, and this book
Congratulations.
Before we finish, I just want to point out that little me would be in heaven because my first dream job when I was a kid, low key, was actually to be a cartoonist, and I always wanted to be one. And like I just wanted to get published, and like wanted to be a political cartoonist because I was a nerd and all a political nerd. But anyway, there's a character that writes. I can't find it now. There's a character that writes letters to her brother in this book, and there's one part where she's describing the creatures, and I was like, "Oh, let me put a picture in there, you guys." And they're like, stop yelling at us. Calm down. Chill. Can I put a picture in? Daniel. So I got to draw monsters. Yeah.
So have you actually drawn a Watergate cartoon then? Was that one of your first ones?
Yes. I was actually a published political cartoonist when I was like 12.
That's awesome. That's impressive.
It wasn't Watergate stuff, but it was just random, weird, whatever was happening in the news at the time. These are the monsters.
Hi.
I was supposed to be a kid drawing it anyway, so
Love it.
Yeah, so that made young me very happy.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my stuff.
Well, thanks again for joining us, Daniel. Before we leave, Chris, where can people find you?
Unfortunately, on Twitter. It's a war zone. At Chris Ryans, RYONS. You'll find me there.
Ben?
You can find Jan and me at the Star Bros podcast on Twitter.
Tommy?
You can find me Star Wars Savage, Instagram and Facebook. Not on Twitter.
Nope.
Still banned.
You can find me at Stay on Target 42 on Twitter and at Broaxium.
Same.
And Daniel, would you like to drop your Twitter handle? I'm sure everyone knows it.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet on it. It's at DJ Older on Twitter. On Instagram, see, I didn't do. You're supposed to have like the same across the. I didn't do that. Yeah. On Instagram, I'm Daniel José 1, and on TikTok, I'm my full name at Daniel José Older.
Oh, I'm finding your TikTok.
That's me right now.
Sounded so dirty.
I'm sorry.
I'm finding your TikTok.
I just have a very weird TikTok, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it, but it is weird.
Well, thank you all for joining. Daniel, especially you. Anyone watching, we hope you enjoyed this amazing interview, and we're going to leave you at that. So may the force be with you.
All right, see y'all later.
If you like this video, force push that like button and subscribe to this channel. You can find us all over social media, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. And may the force be with you.